The night I first encountered the Krasue, I was working late at the small clinic on the outskirts of Ayutthaya, Thailand's ancient capital. It was a peaceful area, with nothing but the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of motorbikes. Or at least, that's what I thought until that night. Ayutthaya, with its sprawling ruins and lush greenery, is a city steeped in history and folklore. But as a medical professional, I'd always dismissed the local legends as nothing more than old wives' tales. That is until I came face to face with one of them. It was just past midnight when the power went out. Our clinic's emergency generator kicked in, casting eerie shadows against the walls. The sudden darkness was disorienting, and the only sounds were the occasional crackle of the generator and the distant croaking of frogs. I was in the middle of organizing some medical supplies when I heard a noise outside. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but then the sound of something scratching at the door grew louder, more insistent. I turned my flashlight towards the source, but there was nothing there. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door cautiously, shining my flashlight into the night. The sky was clear, and the only light came from the distant street lamps. That's when I saw her. She was standing in the middle of the road, her body cloaked in darkness. I could only see her from the waist up, but even that was enough to send a shiver down my spine. Her head was normal, but from her neck down, it was as if something had gone terribly wrong. Her torso was missing, and in its place was a mass of trailing intestines and gore. The sight was so surreal that for a moment, I couldn't process what I was seeing. It was like something out of a nightmare. The Krasue's head turned slowly to face me, and her eyes, two glowing orbs in the darkness, seemed to pierce right through me. Her mouth opened, revealing sharp, glistening teeth. "Help me," she said in a voice that was both seductive and horrifying. "I need your help." I was paralyzed with fear. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs felt like they were rooted to the spot. I managed to stammer out a question, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" "I am the Krasue," she replied, her voice filled with anguish. "I was cursed by a jealous rival. I am bound to roam these lands at night, searching for sustenance." I remembered the old stories about the Krasue, a ghostly figure condemned to wander the night, with her lower body perpetually separated from her head. Legend had it that she sought out blood and flesh to sustain herself, and those who encountered her were often found in a state of terror or worse. Despite my fear, I found myself asking, "What do you want from me?" Her eyes glowed brighter, and the air around us grew colder. "I need to feed," she said, her voice growing more desperate. "Help me, and I will leave this place." I had heard the stories about the Krasue's insatiable hunger, about how she would prey on the living to quench her thirst for blood. But the fear in her voice was palpable, and a part of me felt a strange sympathy for her plight. I knew that if I didn't help, there was a good chance she'd turn her hunger on me or the townsfolk. I don't know if I can help," I said, my voice trembling. "What do you need?" "Blood," she said simply. "Just a small amount. It will give me the strength to find a way to break this curse." There was no way I could just walk away from this. I didn't want to be responsible for anyone else's suffering, so I made a decision. I took a deep breath and went back inside the clinic to prepare a small vial of blood from our supplies. It was a risk, but it was the only way I could think of to help her. When I returned to the road, the Krasue was still there, floating eerily in the darkness. I held out the vial, and she reached out with a hand that looked both human and grotesque. She took the vial and brought it to her mouthless face, drinking with a desperate urgency. As she drank, I noticed a change. Her eyes, which had been filled with torment, softened slightly, and the grotesque mass of her lower body seemed to waver. It was as if the blood was giving her some relief, a temporary respite from her endless hunger. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice now tinged with genuine gratitude. "You have helped me more than you know." The Krasue began to float backwards, her form growing fainter as she moved away from the clinic. I watched in awe and trepidation as she vanished into the darkness, leaving only the sound of the night and the distant croaking of frogs behind her. I returned to the clinic, my heart still racing. I didn't know if I had done the right thing or if I had just made things worse. The Krasue was gone, but the encounter had left me deeply unsettled. The next morning, the power was restored and everything seemed to return to normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. I knew that the Krasue was still out there, wandering the night, searching for another chance to feed and to break her curse. From that night on, whenever I hear the distant sounds of the night or see a shadow moving in the darkness, I remember the Krasue and the glimpse I had into her eternal torment. It's a reminder that even in the most serene places, the supernatural can lurk just out of sight, waiting for the chance to make itself known. and I wondered, deep down, if there's something I could have done differently or if I'll ever encounter her again.